The story has moved. It has not stood still since David Ornstein's exclusive broke through The Athletic on July 25th, and the developments that have emerged in the hours and days since are pointing in a direction that will have Arsenal supporters feeling something between cautious optimism and barely contained excitement. The positive signals are accumulating, and while this transfer remains complex and unresolved, the momentum within the story is moving toward the Emirates rather than away from it. Start with what the latest updates are actually telling us, because the framing matters enormously in a story of this scale. The initial Ornstein report established internal approval at all levels within Arsenal. What has followed builds on that foundation in ways that are genuinely encouraging for anyone who wants to see this transfer completed. Sources close to the situation are indicating that Arsenal's approach has been received positively at the player's end, that Vinicius Jr. is genuinely open to the idea of a move to the Premier League, and that the contract stalemate with Real Madrid shows no signs of resolving itself in the near term. Each of those three developments individually would be interesting. Together, they create a picture where the conditions for this transfer to happen are aligning in Arsenal's favor in a way that did not exist even 3 months ago. The Real Madrid contract situation is the structural reality underpinning everything. Vinicius is in the final 12 months of his deal. Extension talks have stalled completely with no breakthrough in sight. Real Madrid's position is one of increasing discomfort because every week that passes without a resolution moves them closer to the scenario they are most desperate to avoid, losing one of the most valuable players in world football for nothing when his contract expires next summer. The leverage dynamic has shifted. 6 months ago, Real Madrid held most of the cards. Today, with the window open, with Arsenal's interest confirmed at the highest levels, and with no contract extension imminent, Vinicius and his representatives hold considerably more power in determining what happens next. That power shift is positive for Arsenal because it means the conversation is now about what Vinicius wants his future to look like rather than simply about what price Real Madrid demand. The signal that Vinicius is genuinely open to the move is the most significant positive update in the current cycle of reporting. A player of his status at Real Madrid does not become genuinely open to leaving unless something has changed in his relationship with the club, his vision for his career trajectory, or his assessment of what the next chapter of his professional life should look like. The stalled contract negotiations are clearly part of that picture. When a player gives everything to a club across multiple seasons, wins Champions League titles, establishes himself as one of the 2 or 3 best players in the world, and then finds that contract extension discussions cannot reach a conclusion, the emotional and professional investment in staying begins to erode. Arsenal's project, the Premier League title, the Champions League final appearance, the clear upward trajectory under Arteta, arriving at exactly the moment when Vinicius's commitment to Real Madrid is at its most uncertain, is the combination of timing and substance that makes this genuinely viable. Now to what Arteta specifically admires about Vinicius Jr., because this dimension of the story has emerged through the reporting, and it reveals something important about why this is not simply Arsenal pursuing a famous name, but a manager identifying a player whose specific qualities address a precise need within his system. Arteta's admiration for Vinicius is reported to center on several interconnected qualities that go beyond the obvious headline attractions of pace and goals. The first is what those close to Arteta describe as Vinicius's competitive transformation. When Vinicius arrived at Real Madrid as a teenager, he was raw, direct, and brilliant in flashes, but inconsistent and prone to losing the ball in situations that did not warrant the risk. What he became across the following 6 years is the story that Arteta finds most compelling. He became a player who maintained all of that directness and pace while adding the decision-making, the composure in the final third, and the tactical understanding of when to beat a man and when to play simple that separates good wide players from elite ones. Arteta, who has built his entire managerial identity around the idea of improving players and elevating them to versions of themselves they did not know they could be, sees in Vinicius's development story a player who has already done the hardest work of that journey and who arrives at Arsenal at the peak of what that development has produced. The second quality Arteta specifically admires is Vinicius's pressing intensity and defensive contribution when not in possession. This is not the aspect of Vinicius Jr. that casual observers focus on when discussing his qualities, but it is the aspect that matters most to Arteta when evaluating whether a wide player fits his system. Arsenal's attacking identity is inseparable from their defensive work rate. The wide players in Arteta's structure are required to press high, close down fullbacks quickly, and contribute to the team's defensive shape when the opposition has the ball. Soccer does this at an elite level, and it is a significant part of why Arteta trusts him so completely. Vinicius Jr. at Real Madrid under Carlo Ancelotti and previously under Zinedine Zidane developed exactly this quality because both managers demanded it. His pressing numbers across the 2025 to 2026 season placed him in the top 15% of all wide forwards in Europe's top 5 leagues for pressing intensity. That is the data point that tells Arteta this is not a luxury player who needs to be protected from defensive responsibility. This is a player who will fit the demands of the system without requiring structural adjustments to accommodate his work rate deficit. The third quality in Arteta's assessment is what the analytics community describes as Vinicius' ability to create overload through dribbling in wide areas rather than in central positions. Most elite dribblers in world football are most dangerous when they cut inside, when they move from wide positions into the central spaces where their threat is most acute, but also where defenses are most concentrated. Vinicius does both. He is as effective cutting inside onto his right foot and shooting or playing a through ball as he is when he stays wide and crosses or plays a combination down the left channel. That two-dimensional threat is the quality that makes him almost impossible to defend with a single player, and it is what forces defensive managers into the uncomfortable choice of whether to commit a second defender to him or accept the 1-versus-1 situation and trust their fullback. The fourth quality is the one that Arteta has spoken about in general terms when discussing what he looks for in attacking players without naming Vinicius specifically, but which those close to the manager confirm is directly relevant to his interest in this move. It is the ability to perform in the biggest games. Arteta has built a team that wins Premier League titles. The next mountain is the Champions League, and the evidence of the PSG final showed that in the very biggest games against the most elite opposition, Arsenal needed more individual moments of brilliance to break down sides that are deeply organized and physically exceptional. Vinicius Jr. has scored in a Champions League final. He has scored in multiple Champions League knockout games against the best defensive setups in European football. His record in the competition's latter stages is exactly the kind of big-game evidence that Arteta is looking for when assessing whether a player can provide what Arsenal currently lack at the very highest level. Now the statistics and analytics, because the numbers around Vinicius Jr. in the 2025 to 2026 season tell a story that fully justifies Arsenal's pursuit and makes the transfer case almost irresistible when examined objectively. Across all competitions in 2025 to 2026, Vinicius Jr. scored 28 goals and provided 17 assists. That is 45 direct goal contributions in a single season. To put that in context, only 4 players in European football across all top 5 leagues and competitions exceeded 45 direct goal contributions in the same period. Vinicius was one of them. The others were Erling Haaland, Robert Lewandowski in his remarkable late career resurgence, and Kylian Mbappé. The company he keeps in that statistical tier is all you need to know about where he ranks in the current hierarchy of attacking players in world football. In La Liga specifically, his numbers were 21 goals and 13 assists from 32 appearances. His goals per 90-minute figure of 0.71 was the third highest among wide forwards in the division behind Mbappé and Lamine Yamal. His assists per 90 of 0.44 was the highest of any wide forward in La Liga. That combination of goals and assists at those rates from a wide position is genuinely exceptional and reflects a player who has matured from a direct threat into a complete attacking contributor. The dribbling numbers are where Vinicius separates himself most clearly from every current Arsenal wide option. He attempted 7.2 dribbles per 90 minutes in La Liga last season and completed 68% of them. To understand why that combination is remarkable, consider that most elite wide players in world football attempt between 3 and 5 dribbles per game and complete between 50 and 60%. Vinicius is attempting significantly more than the average and completing them at a rate above the average simultaneously. That means he is both more willing to take on defenders and more successful when he does, a combination that creates a constant threat that defenders cannot simply absorb by sitting off him. His progressive carrying numbers, the metric that captures how often and how far a player advances the ball toward the opposition goal through running, placed him second among all outfield players in La Liga behind only Lamine Yamal. He averaged 12.4 progressive carries per 90 minutes, meaning that in a 90-minute game he moved the ball forward significantly through his own running more than 12 times on average. Arsenal as a team in the 2025 to 2026 Premier League season ranked 4th in progressive carries per game. Adding Vinicius Jr. to that system would elevate that collective number substantially and create a different level of direct threat in transition than Arsenal currently possess. His Champions League numbers across the 2025 to 2026 campaign were 8 goals and 6 assists from 12 appearances, 14 direct contributions in European football's premier competition across one season. His performance rating in the Champions League knockout stages specifically, the games that matter most, placed him in the top 3 across all players in the competition. Those are the numbers that speak directly to what Arteta needs from a wide player in the biggest European games. Compare those numbers directly to what Arsenal currently have in the equivalent wide positions. Soccer's season produced 22 goals and 15 assists across all competitions. Exceptional numbers from the right side that reflect why he is considered one of the best wide players in the Premier League. But Arsenal need a left side option of equivalent or superior quality. Trossard contributed 8 goals and 7 assists across all competitions, valuable but not at the level required for a team targeting Champions League glory. Madueke produced 11 goals and 8 assists in his first full Arsenal season, promising but still developing toward consistent elite-level production. Vinicius Junior's 45-goal contributions against those baselines tells the story of the gap between what Arsenal currently have on the left and what they would have if this transfer is completed. The expected goals and assist numbers, which strip out the element of finishing fortune and measure the actual quality of the positions a player gets into and the opportunities he creates, are equally compelling. Vinicius underperformed his expected goals slightly last season, scoring 28 against an expected figure of 24.3, suggesting his finishing was above average but that the underlying chance quality he generated was already exceptional. His expected assist figure of 11.8 against actual assists of 17 suggests he is an even better creator of chances than his scoring output alone would indicate, consistently putting teammates into positions that should produce goals with a frequency that places him among the top 5 chance creators in European football regardless of position. The defensive contribution analytics referenced earlier deserve specific statistical grounding. Vinicius completed 4.2 ball recoveries per 90 minutes in La Liga last season. His pressing intensity score, measuring the frequency and effectiveness of his pressing actions in the opposition's defensive third, was 7.3 on a scale where the average wide forward in the top 5 leagues scores approximately 5.1. He won 4.8 defensive duels per 90 minutes, a figure that again exceeds what most attacking wide players contribute defensively and that speaks directly to the work rate Arteta requires from every player in his system regardless of their attacking role. The physical profile adds another dimension to the analytical picture. At 26, Vinicius is at the optimal age for a wide player, old enough to have developed the decision-making, consistency, and big-game experience that younger players are still building, and young enough that the explosive pace and physical intensity that make him such a unique threat are fully intact with potentially 8 to 10 more years at elite level ahead of him. The age profile is almost perfectly calibrated for a major transfer investment. Arsenal would be signing him at his peak and retaining him through the core years of whatever project they are building toward multiple Champions League campaigns. The market context around this transfer is also worth understanding clearly. Vinicius Jr. in the final year of his contract, with Real Madrid under pressure to sell rather than lose him for free, represents a market inefficiency that Arsenal are attempting to exploit. A player of his quality in normal circumstances, 3 years remaining on his contract, would command a fee upward of €200 million in the current market. The contract situation reduces Real Madrid's negotiating position and creates the conditions where Arsenal could potentially acquire one of the world's 2 or 3 best players for significantly below his theoretical market value. Andrea Arteta, whose entire professional reputation is built on identifying and exploiting exactly these kinds of market inefficiencies, will understand this dynamic better than almost anyone in European football. The Zubimendi deal, agreed in advance before the market could inflate the price. The Gyökeres deal, executed at a price that now looks like a bargain given his output. The pattern of Arteta's work at Arsenal is consistent, and the Vinicius situation has the fingerprints of his approach all over it. The broader strategic picture of what this transfer means for Arsenal's project is perhaps the most important analytical framing of all. Arteta has taken Arsenal from the team that was fighting for top 4 to the team that won the Premier League and reached the Champions League final. The natural next question in that progression is what moves them from being a team that reaches Champions League finals to being a team that wins them. The answer to that question almost universally in football history involves adding a player whose individual brilliance can unlock situations that collective systems cannot. A player who, in a final against elite opposition that has studied your patterns and neutralized your system, can create something from nothing through sheer individual quality. Vinicius Jr. is that player. He is what Barcelona had in Messi and what Real Madrid have had in Ronaldo and then in Vinicius himself for the last several years. He is the individual X factor that turns very good teams into teams that win Champions Leagues. Arteta knows this. The internal approval at all levels indicates the entire club knows this. The positive signal from the players' side suggests Vinicius himself may be beginning to see Arsenal not as a consolation destination, but as the right next chapter in a career that has already produced everything Real Madrid could offer him. The conditions for this transfer are better than they have ever been, and they are improving with each passing update. Arsenal want Vinicius Jr. because he is the missing piece. Because at 26, with his numbers, his profile, his big game record, and his fit with everything Arteta is building, he is the player who takes this project from its current level to the level the club has been targeting since the day Arteta walked through the door. The story is moving. Watch this space.